Every once in a while, you hear a story that's just a perfect storm of careful planning, an unexpected disaster, and a super high stakes recovery. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today. A case study that has all three, showing what happens when a critical project goes completely off the rails at the absolute worst moment. So just try to put yourself in this team's shoes for a second. You've been planning this for months. You specifically picked a holiday weekend to make sure the business isn't disrupted. Everything is perfectly set up, everything's ready to go, you're feeling prepared, you're feeling confident, right?
And then, bam, the one person with the complete picture, the architect of the entire plan, has a family emergency and has to leave town. All of a sudden, that feeling of being in complete control just vanishes.
Now, here's the kicker. This wasn't a case of bad planning. Not at all. In fact, it was the complete opposite. Let's actually take a look at just how well prepared this client was before everything started to go wrong.
I mean, they had done everything by the book. The migration itself was planned out months ahead of time. They made the smart call to schedule it for a holiday weekend. And get this, they didn't just have one team. They had 3 full teams assembled and ready to go. 2 for the actual migration work, and a third team whose only job was testing and validation. This was, on paper, a textbook setup for success.
So with a plan that solid, how on earth did it all go so wrong so fast? Well, this is where a series of really unfortunate but very human events came together to create that perfect storm. It all kicked off on Friday evening. A few team members started calling in. They had to back out because of personal emergencies. Okay, that's understandable. Life happens. But then, later that night, the core technical lead, the one person holding the whole plan together, also had to leave. So by Saturday morning, the team on deck was in an absolutely awful position. They had bits and pieces of the plan, some incomplete documents, and this massive, time-sensitive migration just staring them right in the face. And this is the really crucial part. This wasn't some simple server upgrade that you could just push to next week. The business implications were huge, and that deadline, well, it was completely non-negotiable.
So, the reason it was so urgent is that this was what's called a business transfer migration. Now, this isn't just about moving data around. This is a critical piece of a much larger business deal where one company's entire IT operation is being handed over to another. It's all tied up in contracts, money, and a whole lot of legal agreements.
So when we say high stakes, what are we really talking about here? Because it's so much more than just a technical hiccup. Let's break it down. You've got binding contracts with these rock-solid, hard deadlines. Company A's data was still running on Company B's cloud account, and guess who was paying for that? Company B, until the move was totally done. There were legal agreements with very specific performance clauses, and you had stakeholders from both companies watching this migration like a hawk. And you can just see the dominoes starting to fall, right? Missing that deadline meant a potential breach of contract, which could trigger huge financial penalties. It would absolutely wreck the business relationship between the two companies, create a total mess of legal problems, and just destroy any confidence the stakeholders had in the deal. The pressure was just enormous. So faced with this, let's be honest, near impossible situation, the team that was left made a really, really smart call. Instead of just trying to force their way through it with half the information, they decided to call for expert help. And that was the turning point. The team was smart enough to see just how big the risk was. As the case study puts it, they knew enough to be worried, but not enough to proceed confidently. Think about that. They knew they were in over their heads. And that realization, that self-awareness, that's what ended up saving this entire project. And wow, the response was fast. The call went out, and literally within just a few hours, the BitHost team was engaged and working right alongside the client staff. You could just feel the tone shift immediately from crisis and panic to control and methodical action. So how do you rescue a complex migration in less than 48 hours when you have limited info? The answer? You don't panic. You get systematic. Here's exactly how they tackled it. They used this awesome 5-step response that was just critical. First up, a rapid assessment. Jump into both cloud environments and just get the lay of the land. Step 2 was to understand the context. Talk to the team, look at the legal docs, and make sure no contractual lines were crossed. Third, map out every single dependency so nothing breaks. Fourth was the careful, methodical execution, fixing issues as they popped up. And finally,
Constant validation, working with that on-site testing team to make sure every single piece worked perfectly after it was moved.
So, by following that structured plan and, yeah, working straight through the holiday weekend, they actually did it. They pulled it off. So, let's look at the final outcome and the really important lesson we can take from this whole thing. Think about all those nightmare scenarios we talked about. Every single one of them? Gone. Neutralized. What could have been a breach of contract? Nope. Contract honored. The threat of massive financial penalties? Totally eliminated. And those potentially damaged relationships were completely preserved. It was a complete 180 from the brink of disaster. So in the end, this was about so much more than just moving some servers. The big business deals stayed on track with no delays or penalties. Both companies protected their reputations. Company B got off the hook for those infrastructure costs, just like the agreement said, and all those scary legal risks, they just vanished. This was a win on every single level. And I think this quote really just nails the key takeaway here. Plans fail. People have emergencies. Technology throws curveballs. It's so true. This whole story is a huge lesson in the danger of having a single point of failure. It doesn't matter how perfect your plan is. If all the really critical knowledge lives inside one person's head, you are vulnerable. The true test of being prepared isn't just having a great plan, it's having the resilience for when that plan breaks. So that leaves us with one final thought. Sooner or later, every complex project, your project, is going to face its own perfect storm. When that day comes, who are you going to call? It's a really important question to answer before you ever